when I graduated from Stanford, this guy that was talking about the speaker really gave me a lot of inspiration. Have you heard of that speech by Steve Jobs? That commencement speech
Yes,
at Stanford?
definitely.
That was him.
You were in the
I was-
audience. Engineering background, finance, and an inspirational speech by Steve Jobs, the one and only.
Yes.
And now you're in edtech. How has those three things affect what you're doing now with Turtle Learn? If you had to go back to that time where you were naive and you had to change anything, what would you have changed, Kendall?
I think this is a question that I keep asking myself all the time.
Now, where were you on June the 12th, 2005? Well, our guest today was just sitting a few steps away from Steve Jobs when he was delivering the commencement speech to the Stanford graduation class. Our guest today is no other than Kendall Lo, who is the co-founder of Turtle Learn. And today he'll be sharing with you how that speech has transformed his life, moving from a field of finance, now being a leader in the edtech space. Kendall also share how the pandemic has literally shaped the direction of their company and how they have pivoted using the learnings of some old Chinese philosophy that has really stirred my thinking and most certainly would stir yours. Stay tuned, level up, and let's go. Now, welcome tech enthusiasts to another electrifying episode of the NextGen Tech CEO's Journey. I'm your host, Deano Delpleash, and today we're tuning up the excitement as we introduce you to a tranquilizing entrepreneur who's redefining the future of education tech. And that's edtech for short. Now meet Kendall Lo, the CEO and co-founder of Kazo Technology, a company that's making waves in the tech world, along with their groundbreaking brand, Turtle Learn. Now, why should we be pumped about having Kendall on the show? Now, let me give you three heart-pounding reasons. Reason number one, Kazo Technology, along with their exceptional brand Turtle Learn, is not your average startup. They're a multi-award winning powerhouse. That's right, they have clinched the prestigious CES Award, showcasing their cutting-edge innovation. Reason number two, Kendall is a Stanford graduate and he's not alone. His co-founder, he has co-founded this groundbreaking company, including Turtle Learn, with another Stanford alumni. When you've got two Stanford graduates at the helm, you know you're in for something extraordinary. Reason number three, Kendall and his team, backed by Turtle Learn, have global ambition. They're setting their sights on North America and Southeast Asia as their two first conquests. Get ready because Kazo Technology, in collaboration with their brand Turtle Learn, is on a mission to transform education worldwide. Kendall Lo is not just your average entrepreneur. He's a visionary, an innovator, and a game changer in the world of edtech. Welcome to the show, Kendall.
Thank you, Deano. My pleasure to be invited here.
Super excited for this conversation. And I think the first question I always ask, because one of the things most people don't understand is why do entrepreneurs do what they do? Yeah, so where did this story begin? Yeah.
I think it's a combination of life experiences and my persona, my personal interests, all combined together to lead me to where I am here. I think the story started off when I was a little kid. My father was an engineer. Okay, so at a very young age, I was taught, even at the age of 6 or 7, he was like teaching me how to read the color bands on his sisters. So
Oh wow.
So when I grew up, I naturally,
that takes me back.
I mean, talk about parenting, right? But when I grew up and entered university, naturally I chose engineering as my major because by then I developed a keen interest in mathematics and just in general how to make things work and apply in real life. And I certainly did quite well in school, and that was the beginning of the seed, how I wanted to make an impact on the world by creating something tangible. And so then when I graduated, unfortunately there was this recession that happening everywhere in the world, and by twist of fate I actually went to Stanford, and then I pursued a career that is very different from that is not true to my heart. I went into finance actually in the very beginning.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yes. Not that I didn't like finance. I actually went.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off here, but now you have me curious. An engineer enrolled in a finance program. How did that happen? Yeah, I'm really how did that happen?
like I said, I was very interested and fairly good in mathematics, and when I said finance, I'm not talking about the average, like the usual investment banking, like you have bankers going to do presentations and everything. I actually was involved in the quantitative side of finance, like quantitative trading, which is actually
Interesting.
very intellectual and also very intriguing to me intellectually as well. But over time, the seed that got planted in my, deep down in my mind, the desire to create something tangible that benefits people in general, sort of started to resurface. And there's actually a small anecdote that, I don't know if it will feel too cheesy for everyone listening to this podcast. So, one of the many reasons that after so many years being in finance, that I chose to come back to engineering and in fact start an entrepreneurial journey was quite related to, the speech that a commencement speaker made in my graduate commencement ceremony at Stanford. That speaker really gave me some very impactful inspiration that it's possible to start something from scratch and pursue your dreams, and work hard at it. Um, put some perspective into play. Way back then, when startup culture wasn't as big of a thing right now, I too, when I
I
was
can
an
imagine.
undergraduate, right? I actually did have a lot of ideas that could have been turned into viable products and maybe companies as well. For example, I and a bunch of us guys at undergraduate days, we created this automatic golf ball collector robot that goes around the golf turf and collect robots. At that time,
Oh wow.
the automatic vacuum cleaner wasn't even around. So if we had spun the idea around and turn that golf ball collector into vacuum cleaner, I mean, it could have been us. That no, that idea that I sort of missed the chance of creating something that could be of value has been lying around in my head for the longest time. And then when I graduated from Stanford, this guy that I was talking about, the speaker, really gave me a lot of inspiration. Hey, maybe somewhere down the road I could still go back to where my heart sits and do it. And in case you're curious who that person is, it's have you heard of that speech by Steve Jobs? That commencement
Yes,
speech
yes,
at
the
Stanford.
definitely.
That was him.
So
That was him.
you were in the
I was
audience
I
when
was in
he
that. I was sitting literally 15 meters on the slight right hand side corner
Oh
from.
wow.
But
Oh
I have to
wow.
say though, back then I had no idea who Steve Jobs was. I mean, God
Ah, okay,
forbid.
okay. Yeah,
Remember
same here actually. Same here.
that was a pre-iPhone era, right? Pre-iPhone,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pre-MacBook,
Mm.
pre-whatever, right? Obviously I knew what Apple was. I think back then we have iMacs and the MP3 player,
Yeah, yeah.
AirPods.
We had the temperature on that. I remember my friends
Yeah,
having some of
yeah.
those. Yeah.
And Apple was really just turning the corner to come back into the mainstream. I mean, PC and Microsoft were the dominator at that time. And yeah, so but when you actually listen to Steve speaking about his life anecdote and how he struggled and
Yeah, yeah.
fell after being fired from Apple and came back in a big way, that
Mm.
itself was super inspirational, even though I had no idea who he was back then. But the way he delivered
Mm.
his speech relating to his experience
Yeah.
really planted a seed in me.
Interesting. There's a few things that jumps out at me that causing the bubbles in my head to rise. So engineering background, finance, and an inspirational speech by Steve Jobs, the one and only.
Yes.
And now you're in edtech. Yeah. How has those three things, the three combination of those three things inspire or affect what you're doing now with Turtle Learn?
I mean, all these things, they could not have been predicted to be related like whatsoever at all, right? But
That
when you
exactly.
when when you look back, hey, there are actually bits and pieces that you could use here and there and combine them, right? So I mean, engineering background was
Break it down for
definitely
us.
the foundation of it. When I was in undergraduate, I actually um, specialized in electromagnetics, studying of EM waves, how energy and
Yeah,
signals
that's our
propagate through
world. That's our
space
world.
and
When I heard
everything.
you talk
A-
about
a-
resistors, I'm like, this is my guy.
Yeah. So if you notice that our company's core technology that won us the CES award was a device or an invention that interacted with touchscreen and could communicate signals by just touchscreen.
Awesome.
And that touchscreen mechanism that we know of today is actually driven by electromagnetics. So
Yeah, yeah.
after a long period of being away from engineering, somehow I still remember my basic training in electromagnetics, and me and my co-founder, also from Stanford, we got together, and we did a lot of experiments on the side of weekends after work, and found out that hey, this really elevates the interactive experience of using touch screens. In a very edtech context, it is very engaging as an experience. So that must be a use case for this new way of interacting with touch screen. And why don't we try to make something happen and see what use case we could apply it on? Obviously, EdTech wasn't honestly
Wait,
the
what
first.
year? What year was this? I'm curious. What year was this? Like, take
That
me
was
back to
when we
that
first
particular time
started
when
the
you were having the
company,
conversation.
2016. Yeah, 2016.
Okay, okay.
Yes. We give, each of us contributed a little money to try to file for a patent for what we thought someone else might have invented it already. Why bother, right? So we put in a little bit of money to see if we could patent it, and voila, the next thing that came back to us is like, yeah, you guys got the patent, and
Oh wow.
our names are actually searchable on Google now under Google Patents, and I'm like, wow. I mean, being from finance, I wouldn't have imagined that ever in my life I would have like an invention patent under my name, and
Awesome.
maybe I
Congratulations
should
to you,
really
man. Congratulations to you both.
think about the possibilities I could have, and then the experience I was in Steve Jobs' commencement speech came back to me. Well,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
the dots are now sort of connecting, but obviously I was a naive entrepreneur back then, having zero experience in starting a company. But then the feeling inside
And
me kept growing.
if you had to go back, to that time, yeah, where you were naive and you had to change anything, what would you have changed, Kendall? What would you have done differently?
I think this is a question that I keep asking myself all the time. But each and every time, um, I mean, it's like when you have a time machine, you go back, how would you have changed things, right? That's assuming that you know the experiences that you have already experienced in those times, then you can make maybe a different decision. So if I put in the right context, right, back in those days or time, given the same amount of information that I knew back then, there's absolutely no way I would have done things differently. I would still be me, and I would still have chosen the same path and made the same decisions at that time. But if you talk about you already know what had happened between then and now, then everything goes right. You have predicted that Elon Musk would come into play. You can buy Tesla shares like 10 years before, and I mean, right? So
I see
yes,
you.
yes,
I
yeah.
see you.
But yeah, so yeah, I would have changed a bit. How I would have it in my life back then.
And what would you say? What would you say is the biggest lesson you have taken with you, throughout the years as a tech entrepreneur? What would you say is your biggest lesson right now to date?
Well, I think this is a thing that is ever evolving. I think in the past 5, 6 years, we have, as a global citizen, experienced a lot of things. Like maybe too many things. We have come from a low interest rate background, and then COVID, and then now there is interest rate hike regime, and the world is
Yeah.
very different now from before. So if you ask me the same question every year, I would have given you a very different answer each and every year. Like if you ask me how I would have handled things during COVID and now, definitely super different, right? Um, I'm trying to avoid the cliche word of being adaptable, being resourceful, and everything. But I think as an entrepreneur, especially when you're starting something that relatively groundbreaking and new, I guess the most important quality is always be optimistic. Mentally speaking,
Interesting.
I think every entrepreneur faces a lot of hardships mentally. You don't know what's going to happen in the market, whether there's a product market fit, whether the product after even the fit happens will take off. But I think a lot of very successful entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, Jack Ma, everybody, they kept that belief, right? But even Jack Ma himself, his business pivoted a few times before reaching his final last success, which is Taobao, the online shopping portal, and then a lot more. But before he and his team changed directions many, many times. But I think so being optimistic that the team as a whole can work wonders, and also the general direction where they're taking will have a bright future. They are both very important, but ultimately it boils down to being a believer of yourself in the team.
That's so true. It's interesting. The reason why I'm laughing is because I think I saw that statement where somebody else, I can't remember who said it, the most important quality of the entrepreneur is being an optimist. Yeah, because of exactly what you said, because the road of an entrepreneur sometimes is 10 times harder than that of an employee. And if you're not optimistic, you are gonna give up. You're gonna stop. Yeah, and that makes me curious. Was there any point along your journey where you felt like give up? And I'd like to know what was it that made you keep going? If you had such a point.
Before I answer that question, right? I do agree that being optimist is an essential quality, but at the same time, I might be playing my own devil's advocate that sometimes you need to balance between both being optimist and pessimist, because pessimist actually brings you fear that stops you from making extremely bad decisions.
What I'll do, I'll challenge that and say we need to be optimistic, but we still need to be realist. Yeah, because sometimes when
exactly.
being a pessimist, you're expecting all the worst. Yeah, be a realist. Yeah, that would be my challenge to that. But you go ahead, continue.
So long-term optimist, but short-term, immediate term, realistic, but still keep your path on track towards the general direction. That would be a more general, better way to put it. But back to your question. Yeah, I definitely think the COVID times were one of the most difficult periods. I think it applies to pretty much everybody today who has experienced COVID. Something that I don't think any of us in this generation has experienced. Back then, it's literally life and death situation, not to mention economics, uncertainty. And worse is, nobody knew when it was going to end. It could have been just 2 years. It could have been 5 years, 10 years. Nobody knows. And, even in that 2-3 period of a COVID struck era that we knew now, the world actually already changed quite drastically before and after. So imagine that period extended to 5 years, 10 years.
I can imagine. I
wouldn't imagine. Right?
I don't mean to cut you off here. I don't mean to cut you off here, but what I'm really curious about is I wanted to take me to that moment. Yeah, it was during COVID where you actually had that thought of wanting to give up, and I don't know, something changed your mind, or something just kept you going. I'm really curious about that. Because I know a lot of people who are listening would be able to relate with such moment, because I had another interview with Daniel Hartman, and he said something interesting. He said every single body who's listening know where they were when they heard about COVID, which is so true. Yeah. So take me back to that day, Kendall. Tell me what was happening.
The COVID period was actually our pivotal year, because before COVID, we had the tech, and we didn't have this edtech direction before. We were actually trying. I mean, remember I mentioned that technology really enhances a high level of interactivity and engagement level to the user interactive touchscreen. So initially, the natural application that we wanted to apply in would be gaming and toys. Like, those Pokemon cards, the figurines that you can play on iPads and touchscreen tables. And we actually did have quite a bit of traction before COVID, negotiating and discussing business terms with the big boys like Nintendo, Sega Interactive, Mattel, Spin Master in Canada. I mean, we did have a lot of these, very would have been fruitful discussions before COVID. And then COVID came and everything came to a halt. Um, and you can imagine the feeling, right? I mean, as a startup with a few people in the team, you have all these names that you've always known for life, coming to you and wanted to strike a deal with you and work on a product with your technology. I mean, everyone would feel really excited, hopeful that this is it. We're gonna make it, right? And then the wait comes, and all business discussions came to a halt because nobody knew, even big corporations knew what demand would be like, how the world would look like. So let's just hold back and pause all business development. But as a startup, what we lack is, the luxury of time. Every single minute costs startup a lot because we burn resources and money, right? So that comes the decision point. What do we do? All of a sudden you fell from state of hopefulness to, okay, so now we don't have anything and we don't know when it's going to end, right? But we stay true to our belief that the technology being able to elevate the experience of the user, interactive touchscreens, has application and value in this world. And just by chance, we went around and we bumped into a few educators here in Hong Kong who actually saw the tech that we were demonstrating. These educators, they specialize in helping special education need kids learn the Chinese language, right? This gives some perspective. Chinese language is actually super hard, super challenging to learn. The average kid in Hong Kong, actually before the age of 12, needs to memorize about 3,000 unique Chinese characters, how to read, write, and use them in sentences and write essays. Needless to say, it is a super difficult task. I went through it in the most painful way ever in Hong Kong here when I was a kid. So you can imagine.
I feel proud of myself. I feel proud of myself being able to go through that as an adult. So that now you're making me feel good. But go ahead, continue.
No. So I'm just trying to say that you can imagine the experience would be doubly or triply excruciating for children with special education needs like ADHD, autism, or learning disabilities, right? So this particular group of students, they need a different way of educating them, particularly in this subject here. So the educators that we met was saying, well, you know what, this group of kids exactly needs the type of interactivity and tactile experience that your tech can offer. And back then iPad was really coming up because during COVID, right? Everyone had to do remote classes, and all of a sudden, iPad or touchscreen tablets became the hottest commodity in the world. All of a sudden, and that really accelerated the adoption of the prototype or product that we very quickly co-developed with this group of educators. And and we
That's
actually
amazing.
It's a lot of different dots that you built and drew before that somehow came to play together at this very special time.
I know. In my head, I'm now wondering, if COVID didn't happen, what do you think would have been an alternative future for you and your team today? Do you believe you will
I don't have a
still
crystal
be?
ball, but the logical prediction would happen.
Tickle my fancy. Go ahead.
The natural prediction would happen. We hit out really well with the gaming or toy world. Some product out there you're now buying would have contains our technology off the shelf of Toys R Us or whatever, Amazon. You can purchase and then you can download an app from App Store, download it, and you can then tap your toy on the screen and becomes your personal avatar and play games on it. I mean, that would happen, what I predicted, what happened in the end result if COVID didn't happen. But because of that unfortunate 3 years that we all experienced, here we are, finding an even more meaningful direction, which is helping young kids actually learn something useful in their life, but at the same time giving them like very completely different learning experience that they can actually enjoy and take away from it.
I'm really, how to say, like hearing that story is really inspiring. Because there's a lot of, how should I say, the impact that you guys are now creating with your tech, it's mind blowing. And we can't even start to understand the level of difficulty these kids would have. I don't personally know anybody like that, but I can just imagine. Now, I want to put our attention on the future for this segment of the discussion. And I want you to imagine, Kendall, imagine that we meet 3 years from now and your life is better than you imagine. What would be happening now with you and the team?
I think, obviously we are optimistic that our current direction and product will find a place in the respective markets that we are trying hard to expand into now. We imagine this is not going to be a short journey. Education is a lifelong experience. I mean, kids don't just stick in the age group of 5 to 9 forever, right? They continue to grow and need additional help in the learning journey. So our company actually has big plans to grow with the current young age group of kids. As they grow and have different various needs in education, we continue to develop innovative products for them to enhance the learning journey all the way until they reach university. That's the grand plan of our company, and everybody in the team is working hard towards that same vision. And I think to me and the team in general, I think this is a very meaningful life career, if you will, to work on. I mean, we will work to get compensation and everything, but ultimately, whether or not you want to find a meaning in your work. And I think here at Turtle Learn, we offer both. And it's actually my wish that our company continues to offer both meaning and a prosperous livelihood to our team members. And hopefully I can work hard to stay that way.
And so what I'm hearing, there's a few things that jumped out to me is that, keep, as your clients, get older, to keep on, innovating with them so that you can serve them as they grow, as well as, creating something meaningful and a meaningful environment for the people.
Yeah, because our product right now focuses on the 5 to 9 age group type, but they will grow over 3 to 4 years, right, as you mentioned. And by then they will need something else.
And what are the challenges ahead? When you look at that future, what would you say are the major challenges ahead for you and the team?
I think market-wise, we believe that the markets we're choosing right now have great potential to help us grow into that state. But nobody knows for sure. If you ask the same question, how the world would be like 2 years from now, even just 2 years ago, you and I, nobody could have predicted. So I think it's very important that we keep, in mind that even though at this point in time, the way we see the world is like such, but it could be completely different 2 years down the road. So it's always important to keep the team on the toes.
Let me pull things back a bit. Right? Let me pull things back a bit because I want to challenge you here. Would that be okay?
Yes, please come at me.
Yeah. Now, what would you think the challenges would be for you personally as a co-founder, as a leader of the team? Moving forward. I think, aside from everything external, what would that be?
I think for me, I have experienced quite a bit of growth from a couple of years ago, especially in terms of team management and people management. I come from an engineering background. I've always been a very hands-on person. Always wanted to create things on my own hands and see it happen, right? But over time, I realized that as a company grows more complex, the way that I've been doing things, trying to get my hands on the programming and the experimentation, is no longer the best for the company in general. So it's more important for me to identify the right talents, the right people to come together and work towards the goal. So it's a piece of personal development work that I keep reminding myself. And honestly speaking, I'm far from perfect in this aspect.
We're
So
human.
in my mind, the next 2 years will be I'm giving myself this challenge that I need and I need to grow into a better leader in assembling a talented team that is aligned in the same direction. And I think that speaks true for pretty much all entrepreneurs as well, as the team
Definitely.
starts to
As you're
grow.
saying it, is like, it's a conversation that I've been having with other CEOs as well. So I'm happy that you're bringing this up, because I know most of the listeners would be able to relate. So most likely, as you're growing as a company, your ability as a leader would need to shift. Yeah, because when you start in the beginning, you're very hands-on, but now you gotta shift from being the person who's literally writing the code to empowering the group of people who you want to do exactly what you're doing at a scale. Now, my question here for you would be, what are the opportunities you can create, if you show up with more determination, knowing what you know now?
Um, I think the availability of new tech coming out from everywhere is coming out at an astonishing rate, as particularly in the past 2 years. First, we have the metaverse. I mean, it might have dipped a little bit this year, but I think as coverage catches on, it will probably have to come back. And because it does offer a superb immersive experience to the user, barring the goggles wearing experience, right? Not to mention generative AI and the AI that is now making waves in the world, by be it content creation, curation, or just about answering your simple question on ChatGPT. I think a lot of these new tech development are happening so fast, that it offers both challenges and opportunities for any entrepreneur, especially tech entrepreneurs who is producing end products for users. Because not only do you have to try to have the insight or the ability to sieve out noises and identify the right tech to choose and develop into. I'll give you a blunt example. If you chose Metaverse 2 years ago and decided to dive in with all your company's resources into Metaverse, I think if you are a startup, it would have been quite a bit of a rough path this year or last year when Metaverse sort of came down a little bit. The pressure on entrepreneurs and opportunities, if you identify the right tech to leverage on and continue to design your products around that correct tech tree, then you will continue to ride a wave and stay ahead of the game. And that is an opportunity. But at the same time, it depends on entrepreneurs' insights and intuition in most cases, if you will, to sort of guess or predict or forecast what's going to happen in the 34 years.
What I'm most curious about is how would these opportunities affect, who you're going to be as a leader? Yeah, because when we mentioned the challenges, you said the major challenge for you would be to step more into this leadership role instead of being hands-on. So as you're scaling out your team, what are the opportunities ahead for you? Yeah, when you show up with more determination, stepping into that leadership role. That's what I'm curious about.
I think since because of your location, I think my background as ethnically Chinese, right? There is a very famous novel in the Chinese culture, which is Romance of Three Kingdoms. Talk about how three warlords battle each other out with various battle tactics and hiring talents, and deploying them in the right positions to win battles over battles to achieve ultimately what they want is to reunite the country. So I actually read. I'm actually a big fan of that novel, and I draw a lot of inspirations from the very detailed stories, how they describe those leaders make decisions as well as recruiting talents, especially when it comes down to putting the right talents in the right place. Now, when it comes to when it gets put into the tech context related to what I just talked about, how you position your company to prepare for tech development, before you even decide on the actual product direction, you need to staff the right talents at the right place in order to develop those products. So let's say you think AI is going to be big in the next 2 or 3 years. You have to first pre-position your company with the right talents. Maybe not the exact AI talent, but people who shows that has the ability to grow into that direction and get them prepared for whatever product direction that you want to grow into. Give them the right guidance, give them the right nurture, so when the time comes, they can immediately shift into gears to go full throttle in the direction. So that's actually an art, more than anything, how to both manage people and also give the right talent the right opportunity so that they can also personally grow into a career that they couldn't have imagined before.
I really like that, putting the right talent in the right place. There's this book that I read that really shares a good light on this. It's called Traction. I can't remember the author's name, but I'll share that with you later. And they have a chapter that speaks a lot on that. Yeah, having the right people in the right place, because sometimes we can have the right people in the wrong place. Yeah. So my next question would be, how do you identify the right people? Yeah, it seems like this has been a topic that has been coming up with everybody I'm talking to today. How do you identify the right people?
Great question. There was this leadership training that I just attended not too long ago, and they actually gave a very surprising anecdote that a professor, I forgot which professor in which university, they actually conducted an experiment some years ago. They have two groups of students, Group A and Group B. Both groups, Group A is more talented in reading books, speed reading, right? So by words per minute, they read a lot faster than Group B. To put some numbers in perspective, Group B, the average group can read maybe around 80, 90 words per minute. Not bad, as an average reader. Group A, I believe, they by default they can read maybe already 200, 300 words per minute already. The talented group. Now, both groups actually did not have prior professional training in speed reading. So now the experiment goes like this. They put both groups into proper professional speed reading training. And the leadership coach actually challenges to guess which of Group A and Group B had the bigger percentage increase in reading in speed reading ability. What do you think? The average group or the talented group has the biggest percentage increase?
Well, the devil's advocate in me is gonna pick Group B
because they start with a lower base, right? Right.
Yeah, so, that's my assumption. It's like the potential. They have that potential gap. Yeah, that's my assumption.
Sure. So likewise, that's what I guess as well, because obviously there's a human limit to how fast you can read, right? So the group with the lower base would have a bigger percentage increase. So the end result is Group B, after training, they could on average read about 60% faster than they could before the training, which is around 150, 140 words per minute. Not bad, not bad at all. I don't think I can even read that at that speed. But for the Group A talented subjects, the result was 8 times faster they could read before, over 2,000 words per minute. Can you imagine? You can Google it. I'm not making this up. Wow. This is a real experiment. So that moment, it really struck me that if you put the right talent and give them the right nurture, they can perform at a level that none of us average Joes can ever imagine. I've given you some day-to-day example. I'm a person with little musical talent. No matter how much I train, I'm not going to perform any better than Lang Lang, the famous pianist, right? Because he's a genius and he went through proper training. That's why he's a world-class, almost one or two pianists. That's the difference. So as an entrepreneur, as a company leader, your job is actually to identify these supernatural talent, give them the right nurture, put them in the right position so that they can perform at an extraordinary level. Now, I don't know, in Asian education culture, we're trained to be all-rounded, right? So we were told you need to do well in all mathematics, sciences, languages, whatever. You should be a straight A student, right? Basically, the typical stereotypical Asian culture. Be a straight A student, which is not bad. Academically speaking, it helps you get far in your academic life. But people are built differently from being equally good in all aspects. Some people are better at mathematics, some people are better at languages, etc., etc. If you are a company management or leader, it's actually better for you as a company to have those extraordinary talent put in the right place, and then they work as a team so that the whole company as a whole perform 8 times better than the average company. So that's a challenge of, as an entrepreneur, as a management, is how to identify those talents and then give them the right nurture. So you have to have both the ability to identify
most
talents
definitely.
and the ability to give them the right guidance, right? Yeah.
When you share that, I can't remember the author name, and I saw it this morning. He was drawing an analogy. He bought his son a fish, and he was talking about the same issue we're talking about, developing talent employees. And he said he bought his son a fish, and it was a Nemo fish, one of those Nemo looking fish. And the fish was in the tank, and the tank was really, very cute fish. And the fish was in the tank, and the tank was really dirty, and the fish was like swimming low as if it's dying. And then he asked the son, Jimmy, what do you think we should do about little Nemo here? And the son was like, I think we need more fishes. And then the father looked at the son and he asked him, do you think if we add more fish in here, they would swim better? And then the son looked at the dad and he thought, maybe we should change the water. And the dad was like, good idea. So they changed the water, and then little Nemo starts swimming, start being like he was, a champion fish again. And the moral of that story was that, the moral of the story was creating the environment, so your people can strive. And I think that's hit the point on when you mentioned making sure that you have the right people in the right location, in the right environment. As leaders, we need to create that environment for our Nemos to strive. Yeah, and because of time, I want to ask you this question just before we transition. What would you say is your biggest insight from what we have just discussed? Yeah, around the idea of having people in the right place, like even the entire conversation. What would you say is your biggest insight so far in this discussion, Kendall?
I think the discussion we just had actually allowed me to reflect on almost my entire entrepreneurial journey, starting from when I got the inspiration on starting the company and also to where I am now. I am far from being successful, but I think I have learned a whole lot of things that I did not know when it comes to running a company and leading a company. I think it applies to a lot of first-time entrepreneurs as well, especially when they came from a corporate background to trying out their abilities in the entrepreneurial world. You will always bump into things that you did not know, but it is possible that if you work hard and listen hard to surrounding and talk to people, you will over time grow and develop the skills needed to run a successful company. As long as you stay resilient and keep fighting and keep surviving. And so I think the insight that you're asking me is that obviously now I'm projecting into my own future, right? There are obviously a lot of things I don't know yet, even when it comes to how running big companies and everything. But drawing from my own personal experience, I should be optimistic and confident that if I keep at my work ethics, my habits, and everything, I can also grow over time myself and be able to achieve a level that I couldn't imagine before.
Beautiful.
And hopefully that applies to everybody else as well.
Yeah, most certainly. I think that's a message that I have just received personally, and I'm sure those who are listening, receive that as well. Now, what I want to do with this segment is, a little fun segment where I said this or that. I'm gonna give you 2 options, and you can only choose one. I know a lot of CEO, they're tempted to give explanation as to why they choose the other. The rules of the game, Kendall, you can only choose one. If you want to have a conversation about why you choose it, we can do that offline. Is that okay?
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, let's get it. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Ideate or execute?
Execute.
Lead by data or gut feeling?
Gut feeling.
Introvert or extrovert?
That's a tough one.
Come
Introvert.
on, Kendall.
I'm an introvert.
Delegate or do it yourself?
I would say delegate.
Think big or start small?
Think big.
Angel investor or VC funding?
Say that again?
Angel investor or VC funding?
Angel investor.
Mac or PC?
Mac. All the way.
Coffee or tea?
Sorry, say it?
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. At least one can every day.
Office or remote? Office or remote
Office. Office.
We can see the devotion in some of those answers. No, thank you so much, Kendall.
No, thank you so much for having me here. My pleasure.
No, thank you. This was truly an insightful conversation, and you dropped some big bombs that we can go even deeper in. And my final question for you would be, if this was your last message, if this was your last message you can leave to planet Earth and those that are listening, what would be your final message?
I think that relates to what we're trying to do as well here at TurtleLearn is we want to make a difference to improve the livelihood of whoever we are targeting in general. I believe in creating value that is both cool and useful, and hope it stays true for every entrepreneur out there. Focus on the value creation part for the world.
Awesome. That's Kendall Lo right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. And for those that would like to get connected to you, whether they are potential partners, potential employees, investors, how can they get connected to the work that you're doing right now?
Oh, you can go to our website, turtlelearn.com, or email me, or you can find me on LinkedIn, kendall.lo@turtlelearn.com.
Let's get it. Let's go. Thank you so much again, Kendall. Let's stay connected. Let's continue
Thank you so much, Deano.
On LinkedIn.
It's been a pleasure seeing you.
And get connected, everyone. This is Kendall Lo for you. Thank you. You've heard the stories and strategies of today's top tech CEOs. But where do you fit in? What's your unique superpower as a founder? Now take our free CEO type quiz to unlock your leadership blueprint and gain insights to maximize your potential. Now go to levelupwithdeano.com and take just 3 minutes to complete this quiz. Instantly receive a detailed report revealing your CEO type along with a personalized 3-phase plan for achieving abundance and freedom on your term. Are you a visionary, a driver, an analyst, community builder, or self-improver? Take the quiz now and own your entrepreneurial journey. Discover what makes you tick as a founder and learn to lead from your sweet spot for success. That's www.levelupwithdeano.com. Spelling matters. Make sure you get it right. Take the quiz and start leading on your term, your way. This is your key to freedom, and go and get it. levelupwithdeano.com.